Welcome back to the channel, boys. Fat Bloonski's coming at you next with this GM Nightfall Warlock build. Now real quick before I get into it, I just want to say this gameplay footage you are seeing in the background is actually taken from my most recent live stream. I did some GM Nightfalls. In case you guys are wondering what it's like to see me stream, you can just be on the lookout for that. I don't really have a stream schedule, but I do like to stream maybe once or twice a week or something like that. Typically when there's like something new, like for instance GM Nightfalls. When Master VOG opens up, I'll probably be streaming that. So you can be on the lookout for that and just come hang out. Nothing crazy. We do some challenges, have some fun, get some gear and stuff like that. So definitely be on the lookout for that. But definitely onto the build. So right now we're gonna go over this Eye of Another World GM build. We're gonna try and take advantage of the stasis turrets because in this week they are extremely strong. I have a couple options for this build if you don't like to use this variation, but this is the specific variation that I use for the gameplay footage. So let's go ahead and jump right in. So we're gonna be on Shadebinder. We're gonna have our dust field grenades. We're not really gonna use the actual dust field grenade that much because we also have bleak watcher aspect on. Now in case you guys don't know what this is, you hold and charge your grenade. When you throw it, it then turns into a stasis turret and it shoots stasis projectiles, eventually freezing targets. It is so powerful, especially in endgame content where you can just keep constantly freezing targets and blowing them up and then freezing them again. It is a very good in GM Nightfalls. I'm probably gonna keep going back to this whenever I need to do some hard content. Probably gonna use this in Master VOG if I find it too difficult. Just trust me, this is extremely strong. We're also pairing it with Ice Flare Bolts. So once I do blow up one stasis target or frozen target, all the little stasis trackers go and freeze more targets. It's very good for crowd control. Now onto my fragments, we're gonna use Whisper of Torment. You gain grenade energy each time you take damage from targets. It's going to add to my grenade spam because I want to be able to throw out as many stasis turrets as possible. There is no limit, although the most I've been able to have up before they start going away is 4. I might have gotten 5, but that's really pushing it. Definitely have had 4 by myself at one time. Now we also got Whisper of Fissures, increase the damage and size of the burst of stasis when you destroy a stasis crystal or defeat a frozen target. Since I'm going to be freezing everything and I want my stasis to do as much damage as possible for these GM Nightfall enemies, we're going to use this. So when I blow it up, boom, it's going to do more damage and eventually it's going to lead to me killing off some of the enemies. We also have Whisper of Refraction. Defeating slowed or frozen targets grants you class ability energy. Having your rift as much as possible is going to save your life many times. Plus it's going to allow me to get my grenade back because I am using bomber mods. So use my grenade, freeze the targets, cast my rift, get some grenade energy, keep defeating the frozen targets, get my rift back, go ahead and keep that cycle going. And then we also have Whisper of Endurance, slows when your abilities last longer. For those abilities that linger, their durations also increase, gives you a nice plus 10 in strength. We're also using this because it's going to make my stasis turret last longer, and the slow just lasts longer in general, so they're going to be able to get frozen more easily, and they stay slowed so they can't actually chase you down as fast. It's a very nice fragment to have with this aspect. So moving on to my loadout, I had 2 variations that I use. We're going to go over the one you're seeing in the gameplay footage, and then I'll show you the other one I use off stream just playing with my friends. So each variation did use this specific ignition code. We got Blinding Nades, Slide Shot, and Frenzy. Blinding Nades are just extremely powerful, especially for GM content where you want to try and crowd control the enemy as much as possible. Blinding Nades are nuts right now, so I highly recommend using a GL with them. We also got Slide Shot and Frenzy. Slide Shot so I don't have to reload my grenade all the time, I can just slide and reload it. And then Frenzy, once I get it procced, is a 15% damage buff plus reload speed buff and handling buff. It's very good. I got a boss spec mod on there so I can deal with champions if I need to. Plus having Frenzy gives me a 15% damage buff. I can deal with regular adds as well. It's a very good grenade launcher. Now moving on to my primary weapon. For the gameplay footage, I'm using Gnawing Hunger. I got Field Prep Demolitionist. Now my idea with this was using Demo so I can get my grenade back as much as possible, but I found that I wasn't really using my my auto rifle as much as I can to kill enemies, so I found that Demolitionist was only proccing sometimes, not as much as I wanted to. So the other variation I used was this Vouchsafe right here. I got Outlaw Explosive Payload. It is Void. You're going to want a Void primary or just some kind of Void weapon. Mine happened to be my primary weapon. I found this role to be very good, very useful. It's a scout rifle. I have anti-barrier scout or anti-barrier auto, so I found that either or was really good. You can just do whatever you'd like though. Even if you wanted to use a truth teller, you can. So it's all up to you, but something void is very important for this Nightfall. Now we also have Anarchy because, well, it's Anarchy and it's cracked, and any type of damage you can get without having to be exposed to damage is very powerful. Now moving on to my stats, I have 31 mobility, I have 25 resilience. Now we have 100 recovery and 100 discipline. This is very important for the GM Nightfall, and especially for this build because we want to have our rift back as much as possible, plus being able to regenerate our health as fast as possible is also very nice, and we want to have our grenade back as much as possible. So these two things combined, plus having Eye of Another World and some of the fragments fragments I have on, we're going to get our grenade back as much as possible. We're going to get it back fast. So keep that in mind with this build. This is all about grenade spam. Now we also have 18 intellect, but I have glacial inheritance on, so this is going to help with that. Plus we also have 57 strength. Now moving on to my helmet, we're using Eye of Another World. Now the armor perk that comes on is pretty simple, but it is so unbelievably good. Now we got cerebral uplink, highlights priority targets, which honestly I don't even know what that means. But then it also says improves the regeneration speed of your grenade, your melee, and your rift abilities. And now it doesn't say on the exotic, but it goes past 100. So although my recovery and my discipline are over 100, or they're at 100, this will stack with that. So it's like, I think it gives you plus 10. So it's like having 110 recovery and 110 discipline, and it actually does work. So although my grenade says, I think it's like 53 as a base cooldown for having 100 discipline, I get it much faster than that. Now that's not also adding all the other stuff and other ways I have to get my grenade, but this is an insane exotic for any type of endgame content where enemies don't die quickly, because it's just a simple increase to your abilities. That's all it is, but it's so good because having the stasis turrets, having your rifts, your melees is so powerful in endgame content, especially for stasis. So this is one way I'm going to be able to spam my grenades. Now moving on to my mods, we got our grenade launcher finder because, well, I'm just using grenade launchers, but the important mod I have on here is protective light. While charged with light, you gain significant damage resistance against combatants when your shields are destroyed. This effect consumes all stacks of charged with light. The more stacks consumed, the longer the damage resistance lasts. This is one way that I'm going to save myself from any snipers or any type of one-shot potential, although I think the gladiators one-shot you and the snipers might one-shot you. But any type of splash damage or something where it might not kill me right away, this is going to save my life so much because that damage resist buff is insane. It is so strong, it'll save you your life a bunch of times. Now moving on to my gauntlets, the important mod I have on here, obviously anti-barrier auto rifle because we're using an auto rifle. If you want to use a scout, just go ahead and throw on anti-barrier scout. But the important mod here is explosive WELLMAKER. Rapidly defeating combatants with explosive damage spawns a solar elemental well. I'm using my grenade launcher, and I believe that these stasis explosions from defeating frozen targets also counts as explosive damage, which is going to spawn a solar elemental well, which is going to allow me to proc a well of life, which I'll get to in a second. Now moving on to my chest piece, some of the important mods I have on here is concussive dampener. This is going to protect you from any type of like explosive damage, any type of AoE damage, boss stomps, and whatever. I love this mod. It's very good. It protects you from some of the hardest hitting damage in the game. And we got sniper damage resist because you're going to be hanging back so much in the GM Nightfall. I found that sniper damage resist is probably the best one to have. I also tried it with melee damage resist, but I felt like that wasn't really as useful as sniper damage resist because it's just long range damage. It's not specifically just snipers. So if you're just hanging back, this is going to work and you're going to take less damage from enemies that are at range. And then we also have taking charge, so I become charged with light by picking up orbs of power. Now moving on to my boots, we're using innervation, reduce grenade cooldown. Each time you pick up an orb of power, this is going to allow me to get my grenade back faster whenever I'm able to pick up orbs of power. And then we also have supercharge, so I can have 2 more stacks of charge of light. So now I can have a total of 4 stacks of charge of light, so that way whenever protective light does proc, I can have that damage resist buff for like, I think it's like 18 seconds or something like that, something ridiculous. So I can have it longer than when my health comes back. So once my health comes back, I still have the damage resist buff. I can take some damage. It's very nice buff. Now moving on to my warlock bond, we have 3 very important mods for this build. 1, we're using glacial inheritance. Defeating targets with your stasis super refunds super energy. The warlock stasis super is very important and very good for ad clear, especially in this nightfall when there's so many enemies rushing you. You want to be able to crowd control them, and being able to get it back as fast as possible using glacial inheritance, and of course just picking up orbs of power is very good. You're going to be able to take care of these big groups of ads which might seem overwhelming. You just blind them, going with your Shadebinder super, and you can just kill them all. And we're also using Bomber, which I stated earlier. Reduce grenade cooldown when using your class ability. This is one way that I'm going to be able to spam my grenades. I use my grenade, pop my rift down, I get healing, and I get some grenade energy. It is fantastic. And then we're also using Well of Life, which I did also state earlier. Picking up a solar elemental well grants increased regeneration for a short period of time. If for 10 seconds you get constant healing, it's almost like if you were staying in a healing rift, although it's not as powerful as that. It slowly ticks up, but it's enough where it'll save your life a couple situations. Just getting into proc, and especially in a GM Nightfall, isn't as easy, but they do proc. It's not like they don't ever proc. It's like this is useless. This is not useless, but I do see them proc and I pick them up and they save my life a couple of times, so I highly recommend using this mod. And onto my warlock fashion, I didn't really know how to style Eye of Another World, but I feel like I went with like a honestly, I don't know, I just tried to match colors here. This silver matches the silver from the helmet, and then since the helmet shader I was using has this orange here, I use the orange on the arms. Let's just go ahead and go down to my customization screen. these are all the ornaments I'm using, and here are all the shaders I'm using. So if you want to recreate this fashion, you can just pause it, take a screenshot. There you go. Hope you guys enjoy. I'm actually very happy that this build worked as well as it did. When it comes to Grandmaster Nightfall, I feel like everyone automatically thinks, well, we gotta have a well, we gotta have a bubble, probably banner shield, you know, all the support supers and subclasses. Now, all of those are very great. I'm not saying they're bad at all. Having a well, and even some of my gameplay footage you're seeing right now, we had 2 stasis warlocks and a well. But if you don't want to use well, or someone on your team doesn't want to use well and they're on warlock, I ran this GM with 3 stasis warlocks and we did just as fine. This actually allows you to play a bit more offensive as opposed to always relying on defense with the bubble and Ursas, or the banner shield Ursas, and then bubble with like Helm of Saint 14 or something like that, or Well of Radiance with Phoenix Protocol. You can actually use Eye of Another World stasis turrets and have just as much fun, probably even more fun in my opinion, and do a lot of damage, do a lot of crowd controlling, which makes this Nightfall a breeze. Now, although in the gameplay footage in the background you're seeing me use a Gnawing Hunger with the ignition code, I actually found it better to use the vouchsafe with outlaw explosive payload instead of the gnawing hunger, just because I feel like the scouts, you can stay farther away, and the explosive payload is just a nice damage buff. You're able to kill ads more quickly. A lot of your grenade regen is going to come from you taking damage and popping your rifts out where you get the bomber mod proc and get a nice little bit of grenade energy. So you're not really going to use demolitions as much as possible, as much as I would like to, but it's still a good option if you don't have a vouchsafe, or if you don't have another option but yet you have a void weapon with demolitionist. I would recommend using it because it's still better than nothing. It's void, it has demolitionist, and it's not like it didn't proc. It still procs every now and again, but just not as much. You're better off just using a weapon that can just kill them, and then use your grenade regen from Eye of Another World, taking damage from enemies, and popping your rift to proc bomber. This is probably going to be the build I go to for every type of GM Nightfall. I'm going to go for Conqueror this season. I don't have it yet, and I really want that title. I'm probably also going to use this in Master Vault of Glass. So in case you guys want to see me do that, definitely stay on the lookout for some of my live streams. Again, I do them. I don't have a stream schedule, but maybe once a week. Definitely when there's big events like Master VOD coming out, GM Nightfalls, and stuff like that. So be on the lookout for that, and I hope you guys enjoyed. But if you guys like this content, please like, subscribe, and share. It truly helps me out a lot. You can also check out my other videos. Links are in the description below. I have a lot of crazy builds, so go ahead and check that out. And you might as well follow my social media. I have a Twitter and an Instagram, both at @fat_bloonskis. But with all that being said, deuces.